The salty breeze caressed Sophia's face as she stood at the bow of the family's boat, her eyes fixed on the endless expanse of the ocean. The rhythmic lapping of the waves and the distant cries of seagulls created a soothing symphony that had always captivated her. At just 21 years old, Sophia had grown up on this vessel, her adventurous spirit nurtured by the ever-changing seascape. "Sophia, come help me with the sails," her father called, pulling her out of her reverie. Sophia grinned and hurried to his side, her nimble fingers deftly adjusting the ropes as the boat glided across the azure waters. This was her element, a place where she felt truly alive and free. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the family settled into their familiar routine, Sophia scanning the horizon for any signs of adventure, her mother humming softly as she prepared a midday meal, and her father expertly navigating the vessel through the gentle swells. "I can't wait to see what lies beyond the horizon," Sophia said, her eyes shining with excitement. "Patience, my dear," her father chuckled, placing a weathered hand on her shoulder. "The sea has a way of revealing its secrets in due time." Sophia nodded, understanding that the true joy of the journey lay not in the destination, but in the moments in between. Still, the curiosity that burned within her could not be quelled, and she found herself drawn to the strange device that had been installed on the boat just before their departure. "What does this do, father?" she asked, running her fingers over the intricate controls. "Ah, that's a time machine," her father explained, a proud smile spreading across his face. "It's a prototype, but it should allow us to explore the past and the future during our voyage." Sophia's eyes widened in wonder. "A time machine? Imagine all the secrets we could uncover." Her father chuckled, "Indeed. But we must be careful, the power of such a device should not be taken lightly." Nodding solemnly, Sophia made a mental note to exercise caution around the mysterious machine. As the day wore on, the family reveled in the tranquility of the open waters, their laughter and conversation punctuating the gentle rhythm of the boat's movements. Suddenly, a strange hum filled the air, and the time machine began to flicker and whir to life. Sophia's heart raced as the device seemed to pull at the very fabric of the world around them, distorting the horizon and casting an eerie glow over the boat. "What's happening?" her mother cried, clutching Sophia's arm in fear. "I don't know," her father shouted, frantically trying to shut down the machine. Chaos erupted as the boat lurched and shuddered, and Sophia felt a strange tugging sensation, as if the very ground was being ripped from beneath her feet. She opened her mouth to scream, but the words were snatched away by a deafening roar that filled the air. In the blink of an eye, the world around her dissolved into a blur of colors and shapes, and Sophia found herself falling into a seemingly endless void. Time seemed to stand still as she plummeted, her heart pounding in her ears and her mind racing with 1,000 terrified thoughts. Just as she felt herself slipping into the darkness, a flash of light erupted, and Sophia found herself hurtling towards the earth below. She braced for impact, squeezing her eyes shut, but the landing was softer than she had expected. Slowly, Sophia opened her eyes, blinking against the dappled sunlight that filtered through the towering trees surrounding her. She was no longer on the boat but in the midst of a dense, unfamiliar forest, a world far removed from the familiar seascape she had known. Climbing to her feet, Sophia surveyed her new environment, her senses heightened by a mixture of fear and awe. The air was thick with the scent of moss and damp earth, and the distant calls of strange creatures echoed through the trees. "Father? Mother?" Sophia called out, her voice trembling. "Where are you?" Silence was her only answer, save for the rustling of leaves and the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. Panic began to set in as Sophia realized she was utterly alone, stranded in a place that was both foreign and unsettling. "I have to find them," she whispered, her determination to be reunited with her family overriding the fear that threatened to consume her. "I have to find a way back." With a deep breath, Sophia steeled her nerves and began to navigate the unfamiliar terrain, her eyes scanning the forest for any sign of her loved ones. As she walked, she couldn't help but marvel at the otherworldly beauty that surrounded her, the towering trees, the intricate patterns of light and shadow, the mysterious creatures that darted in and out of the undergrowth. Despite the growing sense of unease, Sophia couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. This was the adventure she had always craved, a chance to explore the unknown and uncover the secrets of the world beyond the familiar confines of the boat. As she pressed on, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The forest seemed to hum with a strange energy, and the shadows seemed to shift and dance in the corner of her vision. Quickening her pace, she pushed forward, determined to find a way back to her family and unravel the mystery of the time machine that had brought her here. Sophia's eyes fluttered open, gradually adjusting to the dim, lush tones of the unfamiliar forest. The air was thick with the earthy scent of moss and damp soil, a stark contrast to the salty breeze she was used to on her family's boat. Disoriented, she slowly sat up, her fingers tracing the rough bark of the towering trees around her. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the symphony of rustling leaves and distant animal calls. Memories of the time machine malfunctioning and the chaotic scene on the boat flooded her mind, filling her with a sense of fear and uncertainty. Cautiously, Sophia rose to her feet, her gaze drifting from one shadowy corner of the forest to another. The dense foliage obscured her view, making it difficult to identify any familiar landmarks. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves, and slowly began to navigate the unfamiliar terrain. As she carefully picked her way through the underbrush, Sophia couldn't help but marvel at the size and age of the trees. Their twisted, gnarled trunks seemed to reach toward the sky, their canopies creating a mosaic of light and shadow across the forest floor. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and the faint, musky scent of unseen creatures. Suddenly, a branch snapped nearby, causing Sophia to freeze in place. She held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest as she scanned the area for the source of the sound. A rustling in the bushes caught her attention, and she instinctively tightened her grip around a fallen branch, bracing herself for the worst. To her surprise, a pair of golden eyes emerged from the foliage, followed by the sleek, graceful form of a wolf. Sophia's breath caught in her throat as the animal approached, its movements cautious and deliberate. She knew she was likely seen as prey in this untamed wilderness and tensed, ready to run at the first sign of aggression. But the wolf didn't attack. Instead, it stopped a few paces away, its gaze fixed on Sophia with an almost curious expression. Slowly, Sophia lowered the branch, her fingers loosening their grip as she met the wolf's intense stare. A strange calm washed over her, and she felt an inexplicable connection to the animal. "Hello," she said softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. To her astonishment, the wolf responded with a low, rumbling growl, its ears perking up as if in acknowledgement. Emboldened by the wolf's seemingly non-threatening behavior, Sophia took a tentative step forward, her hand extended. The wolf tensed, its fur bristling slightly, but it did not retreat. Holding the animal's gaze, Sophia continued to approach, her movements slow and deliberate. As her fingers brushed against the wolf's coarse fur, it felt as if a current of energy passed between them. Sophia sensed a wave of warmth and understanding, as if the wolf was communicating with her on a level beyond words. The animal's posture relaxed, and it stepped closer, nudging her palm with its nose. "You're not going to hurt me, are you?" Sophia whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and fear. The wolf made a soft huffing noise, its tail flicking back and forth, and Sophia felt a kinship with the creature she could not explain. Encouraged by the wolf's calm demeanor, Sophia began to explore her newfound surroundings with the animal by her side. As they moved deeper into the forest, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to shift and dance at the edge of her vision, and the air was thick with a palpable energy that sent shivers down her spine. Suddenly, a high-pitched chittering sound echoed through the trees, and Sophia turned to see an agile, long-tailed creature perched on a nearby branch. The monkey's eyes sparkled mischievously as it looked between Sophia and the wolf, a piece of fruit clutched in its tiny hands. Sophia held her breath, uncertain how the monkey would react to their presence. To her surprise, the wolf let out a low, rumbling growl, and the monkey responded with a series of chattering calls. The two animals seemed to be exchanging some kind of silent communication, their body language conveying a sense of familiarity and even friendship. Mesmerized, Sophia watched as the monkey leaped down from the branch, landing gracefully on the forest floor. It tilted its head in a curious manner as it approached, its nimble fingers reaching out to touch her arm. Sophia couldn't help but giggle at the monkey's playful antics, and as she extended her hand, the animal eagerly climbed onto her shoulder, chirping with excitement. "Hello," Sophia murmured, her voice filled with a blend of wonder and trepidation. The wolf, seemingly unfazed by the monkey's presence, stepped closer, its golden eyes fixed on Sophia with an expression she could only describe as protective. As Sophia continued to explore the enchanted forest with her newfound animal companions, she felt both fear and awe. She was aware of the unknown dangers lurking in the shadows, but the bond she had formed with these wild creatures filled her with a sense of hope and purpose. No matter what challenges lay ahead, Sophia was determined to face them head-on, driven by her resolve to find her family and unlock the mysteries of the time machine that had brought her to this mystical place. Sophia had now spent countless days in the mystical forest, learning to adapt and thrive alongside the animals that inhabited it. Over time, she developed a bond with them, earning their trust and respect in ways she could hardly have imagined. The wolf, whom she had come to call Ash, emerged as her mentor, guiding her through the intricacies of forest life. Through Ash, Sophia learned the hidden trails woven through the forest, the subtle signs animals used to communicate, and the delicate balance of survival in this untamed land. Every encounter with him felt like a new lesson. She learned how to recognize the calls of different animals, understand their warnings, and even decipher their moods. Her animal companions, including the playful monkey who was now a regular presence on her shoulder, became her family, and Sophia found a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. But her tranquil days were soon disrupted. One morning, as she and Ash patrolled a familiar part of the forest, they heard a series of strange, loud sounds cutting through the air. The forest grew tense, animals freezing mid-step or diving into the shadows. Even Ash bristled, his hackles rising, and Sophia's heart pounded with a sense of foreboding. As they crept closer to the source of the noise, Sophia spotted the intruder, a tall, rugged man with a glint of something dark in his eyes. He held a rifle in one hand and carried tools slung across his back. The man scanned the forest with a gaze that felt cold and calculating, and Sophia's instincts told her that his presence meant trouble. Ash let out a low growl, his sharp gaze fixed on the hunter. Sophia reached out to calm him, understanding that they needed a plan. She crouched beside him, whispering, "We have to protect our home. But we need to be smart about it." For the next few days, Sophia observed the hunter from a distance, watching his movements and learning his patterns. She could see that he was setting traps, marking trees, and gathering resources indiscriminately. The forest animals sensed the threat as well, and Sophia could feel their fear. The serene balance of the forest was now disrupted, and the animals looked to her, their trust a reminder of the responsibility she had undertaken. Gathering her courage, Sophia spoke to her animal friends in the quiet moments, conveying her plan through gestures and sounds that they had come to understand. They would work together to deter the hunter, making it clear that the forest was not his to exploit. The first part of her plan was simple but effective. She enlisted the monkey to trigger the traps and scatter the resources he had gathered. Every time the hunter returned to his campsite, he found his traps empty or tampered with, his supplies mysteriously dwindling. Frustration etched on his face, the hunter grew more aggressive, doubling down on his efforts. One afternoon, Sophia watched as he set a large snare trap, one that could easily capture a wolf like Ash. Her blood boiled, knowing that she could not let her friends fall into such danger. With Ash by her side, Sophia gathered her animal allies, the monkey, a pair of foxes, even a family of deer that had learned to trust her, and set her plan into motion. They moved as one, creating a network of distractions and misdirections, guiding the hunter deeper into the forest and away from their safe spaces. The foxes darted in and out of sight, confusing him, while the monkey shrieked from a high branch, drawing his attention away from Sophia's main ambush point. As dusk fell, Sophia's heart pounded, her determination stronger than ever. She watched as the hunter grew wearier, his frustration evident in his every move. Finally, when he seemed at his breaking point, she emerged from the shadows, stepping forward to confront him. The hunter froze, momentarily taken aback by the sight of Sophia standing before him. She straightened her posture, channeling the strength and resolve she had gained in the forest. "This place is not yours to take," she said, her voice steady and commanding. "Leave, or face the consequences." The hunter sneered, his gaze flicking from her to the animals gathered behind her. "You think you can stop me?" he challenged, raising his rifle. But before he could take aim, Ash lunged from the shadows, teeth bared and growl low, followed by a symphony of fierce cries from Sophia's allies. Realizing he was outmatched, the hunter backed away, his sneer turning to fear. Sophia's eyes stayed fixed on him, unyielding, until he finally turned and fled, disappearing into the twilight. The forest was still once more, the animals gradually emerging from the shadows. Sophia exhaled, feeling both relief and pride as she looked around at her friends. She had protected them, standing up not only for herself but for the forest and every creature in it. As they moved deeper into the heart of the forest together, Sophia knew that the bond she shared with these animals went beyond mere survival. She was one of them now, part of this wild, mysterious world, bound by trust, courage, and an unbreakable connection to the life that thrived around her. Sophia's triumph over the hunter was short-lived. Despite her efforts to protect the forest, the hunter returned with greater ferocity, determined to conquer the wilderness and harvest its treasures for himself. His traps were larger, his weapons deadlier, and his approach more calculated. He moved through the forest with grim intent, setting snares, poisoning water sources, and marking trees for destruction. The once peaceful forest was on edge, and Sophia's animal friends looked to her with a mixture of fear and hope. But Sophia's own fear had changed. The girl who had once been frightened and uncertain now felt a deep resolve. She knew the forest, its creatures, and their ways. This place was not just her home, it was her responsibility to protect. Gathering the animals once more, she devised a plan to outsmart the hunter and put an end to his threats once and for all. Her first step was to watch him carefully, noting every move, every trap he set, and every pathway he followed. Ash, the wise wolf, became her partner in reconnaissance, guiding her along the safest routes and helping her track the hunter's whereabouts. As they moved together, a silent understanding passed between them. Sophia felt a surge of gratitude for Ash's loyalty and wisdom. Together with her animal allies, Sophia organized a network of defenses throughout the forest. The foxes, swift and clever, dismantled the hunter's snares, while the monkey swung through the trees, scattering his supplies and sending him on wild goose chases. The deer and rabbits alerted Sophia to his presence by scattering through the underbrush at the first sign of danger, a living alarm system that kept everyone alert. One afternoon, as dusk began to fall, Sophia's chance came. The hunter, now visibly frustrated, moved deeper into the heart of the forest, led by the deceptive trails her animal friends had crafted. Sophia, hidden in the shadows with Ash and the other animals, held her breath as she watched him approach the clearing where they would make their stand. With a signal from Sophia, the monkey dropped down from the branches and let out a series of loud shrieks, startling the hunter. He whirled around, rifle raised, but before he could take aim, the foxes darted in front of him, crossing his path in a blur of red and white. Distracted, he lost his footing and stumbled backward, giving Sophia her chance. She stepped into view, her gaze fierce, her stance unwavering. "You need to leave this forest," she called out, her voice carrying through the clearing. "This place is not yours to exploit." The hunter glared at her, eyes dark with anger. "You think you and these animals can stop me?" he sneered, raising his rifle. But before he could pull the trigger, Sophia gave another signal. Ash sprang forward, his powerful body colliding with the hunter and forcing him to the ground. The man scrambled to his feet, swinging his rifle at Ash, but Sophia's other allies quickly joined the fray. The foxes nipped at his heels, distracting him, while the monkey swung down and snatched the rifle from his grasp, tossing it into the dense underbrush. Frustrated and unarmed, the hunter tried to retreat, but Sophia and her animal friends pursued him relentlessly. She remembered each lesson Ash had taught her: how to move silently, how to anticipate an opponent's next move, how to use the forest to her advantage. Every animal had a role, and Sophia guided them with precision, her movements reflecting the confidence she had gained. The showdown escalated as the hunter, desperate and cornered, attempted to set one of his larger snares. But Sophia anticipated his move, signaling the deer to bolt past him, their swift movement causing him to trip over his own trap. He fell hard to the forest floor, tangled in the very snare he had intended for his prey. Sophia approached him slowly, her breathing steady. She looked down at him, her face a mix of determination and disappointment. "The forest isn't yours to conquer. It belongs to those who respect it," she said firmly, her voice carrying the strength of her newfound purpose. Defeated, the hunter had no choice but to free himself and retreat, casting one last bitter look at Sophia and her allies before disappearing into the shadows of the trees. The forest seemed to exhale, a sense of peace and relief settling over the land as he vanished. As the animals gathered around her, Sophia felt a wave of gratitude and pride. She had grown from a lost girl into a fierce protector, not only for herself but for every creature that called this forest home. The bond between her and the animals was stronger than ever, forged in the fires of battle and strengthened by mutual trust. As they made their way back through the familiar trails, Sophia looked around at her companions with a heart full of respect and love. She knew there would always be threats, always dangers lurking in the shadows, but she was no longer afraid. She was part of this wild, wondrous world, bound to it as surely as the trees were rooted in the earth. With Ash by her side and her animal friends surrounding her, Sophia knew that she would face any future challenge with courage and unwavering resolve. Together, they would protect their home, and together, they would keep the forest safe. After the battle with the hunter, the forest was finally at peace. Sophia stood among the towering trees, her heart still racing from the confrontation, but a new sense of accomplishment and confidence surged within her. The animals gathered around her, their eyes filled with gratitude, as if silently acknowledging her role as their protector. The hunter had been a formidable threat, but with Sophia's courage and the unity of the forest, they had prevailed. As the days passed, Sophia felt a deeper connection to the land she had come to love. She no longer saw herself as a visitor or a stranger in this vast wilderness, but as a part of it. The rustling of the leaves, the calls of the birds, and the whisper of the wind through the branches all spoke to her in ways she had never imagined. She had become attuned to the forest, its rhythms, and its secrets. One evening, as Sophia sat by a tranquil stream with Ash beside her, the wise wolf spoke, his voice low but firm. "You have proven yourself, Sophia," he said. "Not just as a protector, but as one who understands the balance of this world." Sophia smiled, but her thoughts were still occupied with the journey ahead. The forest had been saved, but there was still a deeper mystery to unravel. Her family was still lost, and the time machine, the device that had brought her here, still needed to be found. The journey wasn't over yet. "I need to find the time machine," Sophia replied, her voice steady. "I have to go back to my family." Ash's golden eyes met hers, and for a moment, there was silence between them. Then, he nodded slowly. "The machine is hidden in the heart of the forest, where the trees are oldest. But beware, Sophia, the path is not easy. The forest will test you." With renewed determination, Sophia began her journey toward the heart of the forest, where the time machine was said to be located. Along the way, she encountered more challenges. The deeper she ventured, the more difficult the terrain became. The trees were thicker, the shadows darker, and the air heavier with ancient power. But Sophia no longer hesitated. Her bond with the animals, her growing strength, and her knowledge of the forest guided her. Ash, ever by her side, kept a watchful eye on her progress. "Trust yourself, Sophia," he urged. "The forest will not deceive you. The time machine is but one part of the journey you must take." As they reached the clearing where the time machine was hidden, Sophia saw it, a sleek, metallic structure entwined with vines and moss, almost as if the forest itself had grown around it to protect it. The machine was dormant, but its presence felt alive, humming softly in the stillness of the clearing. Sophia knelt beside it, her fingers brushing the cool surface. For a moment, she hesitated. This machine, this key to her return, had brought her into this world, and now it held the power to take her back. But in the weeks she had spent here, Sophia had learned something important. She had learned that her family's fate was intertwined with the forest's. Her journey was not just about returning to her old life, but about understanding who she was and what she was meant to do in this world. She looked up at Ash, who was sitting nearby, his eyes watching her with quiet wisdom. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady and sure. Ash nodded, offering her a final word of advice. "Remember, Sophia, the journey home is not just about finding your way back. It's about understanding where you belong, and who you've become." Sophia placed her hand on the machine, activating it. A pulse of energy rippled through the clearing, and the air around her shimmered. She could feel the pull of the time machine, the promise of return, but she also knew that whatever awaited her on the other side, she was no longer the same girl who had arrived in this forest. She was stronger, wiser, and more connected to the world around her than ever before. As the light enveloped her, Sophia glanced one last time at the forest that had become her home. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped forward, ready for the next chapter of her journey, wherever it would take her.